Welcome to the day 11 of the 100 days of hell with Python algo trading. Today we will be understanding encapsulation, which is one of the most misunderstood concept of object-oriented programming. Why? Because many of us knows only the bookish definition, but no one knows why we really need encapsulation. So today we will be understanding what and why of the encapsulation completely. So without a further ado, let's get started. So first of all, let's understand the bookish definition of encapsulation. So encapsulation is a key principle of object-oriented programming that bundles data, that is attributes or variables, and methods, which is functions, operating on the data into a single unit or class. It restricts direct access to some components, preventing accidental interference and misuse. Means we have a class in which we have attributes and methods, correct? The variables and functions. So we can say in order to prevent misuse and accidental interference, right? So now let's see some key aspects and benefits of encapsulation. So the first one is data hiding, which is true, right? After this explanation, we will be understanding these all concepts with the help of an example, the real life example. So it will be much better for all of us to understand this in deep, right? So the first benefit, or you can say the key aspect of encapsulation, is the data hiding. Internal details are hidden from the outside world using access modifiers, which are private, protected, and public, correct? The next is public interface. So with the help of encapsulation, we can provide controlled access to data through well-defined public methods. We will understand that also. For now, you just understand that with the help of encapsulation, we can hide our important data and we can prevent the misuse, or we can say the accidental interface, right? Second is we can provide a public interface through which we can provide only the authorized data to the outside world, right? The next is modularity, right? So in which what we can do, we can make our objects self-contained, and that also helps in the understanding, right? And also in maintenance and debugging if we are having any error. So with the help of encapsulation, we can directly point that at which location in our code we are having the issue. The next is abstraction, which means like the program can be very complex from inside. But what is the end goal of a programmer or a company? The end goal is to provide the best solution to the user, right? So they do not have to check the complexity or anything. They will just get a simple interface and through which they can only access the authorized data, right? The next is maintainability. So it is T here. The system is easier to maintain and extend since each component is self-contained and interacts through well-defined interfaces, which means that like once we have written our application and after that we want to modify the code, so it becomes so easier because we just have to modify like a single piece of information, or we know exactly that what we want to modify. So it becomes so easy to maintain with the help of encapsulation, or we can say object-oriented programming. So that was the theory part of encapsulation. Now let's quickly move to the examples and let's see. So before diving in the encapsulation example, let me quickly show you one very small concept, that is instance variable. So what are the instance variable? For example, we have a class trading bot, and inside that we have a function, or you can say we have a method, constructor method, right? Or you can say constructor function. So inside that we have three parameters: the self, the name, the initial cache. So here we know that the self is the object itself. Then we are left with only two parameters. So let me quickly create an object of this class. So what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and write, let's say bot1. Bot1 is equals to trading bot and a parenthesis. Inside that we will provide the name. So let's say name is Apple, and we have initial cache. So it can be 1000 USD, right? So now we know that while creating this object, we have passed two arguments. One is the name of the stock and another is the initial cache, right? So if I want to access this name again, what I will do, I'll write bot1 dot name, correct? So it will print out the apple, right? If I write bot1 dot cache, it will give me an output of 1000. Until now you are clear, right? So we can say this bot1.name is the instance variable of this class. Again, this bot1.cache is another instance variable of this class. That is okay, right? But if I create another object, let's say with the name bot2, and what I'll do, let me remove this dot, not required here. And what I'll do, I'll write as a trading bot, and here I can give, let's say, Microsoft MSFT, and initial cache is 2000. So now if I want to access this name variable, so what I have to write? I have to write like bot2.name, and it will give me an output of MSFT. Correct? Similarly, for bot2.cache, it will give me 2000. So what I'm trying to show you here, that we can have multiple instance variables. For example, this was the first instance variable, correct? This is the second instance variable. Means for a single class, we can have multiple instance variable. So whenever we create an object and we pass the arguments, a new instance variable will be created. But for the normal variables, we can hold only one value, right? So at a time, we can hold only one value in a variable, but in instance variable, we can hold multiple values. So that is the difference between a variable and an instance variable. And in the previous session, we have understood what are the reference variables, right? So you just need to have a clear understanding of what is a reference variable, what is an instance variable, and what are the variables. So that was a simple concept. So now what we can do, we will quickly visualize this instance variable in the Python tutor, and then we will proceed with the example of encapsulation. Now we quickly move to the Python tutor, and I will paste the code here. So what is happening here? We have a class, right? And here we have two objects of that class. So first is bot1. Inside that we have the stock as Apple, and the initial cache is 1000. And in second instance, the second object, we have the stock as Microsoft, and the amount is 2000. So before that, what we will do, we will create instance variables. So bot1.name.cache. Again, let me quickly copy and paste this here. So here I'll just change to bot2. So now we can see we have a class, then we have two objects, and then we have two instance variables of each object. So when I click on visualize, so it will take me to this screen, and here we can see that we have 15 steps. So let's understand this one by one. So when I click on the next button, it will take me directly to the object creation code. So here we can see that a new frame is created, that is a global frame, and inside that we have the trading board class as an object, and you can see here it has been created. Okay, so now the interpreter is at the object creation line. So here when I click on next, you can see here that an instance of the class has been created with the arguments name and initial cache. Here the value is Apple, and 1000 is the cache, and self also is there, correct? That is the trading board instance. So now again the interpreter goes to the inside the class, and here we are at the constructor function, correct? So when I click on next, and it will like assign these values to the self.name, it assigned the Apple, and for the cache it assigned the 1000, right? Then when we click on next, it will go to the second object. Similarly, it will perform the same steps, and again it will go inside the class, and it will execute the constructor function without calling, right? So when I click on next, it will perform the same steps. So first the name, and then we have cache, and in return there is none, right? So we have already understood that when there is no return value, but still the function returns, and that is none, right? So now when I click on next, it will take me to the instance variable. So here bot1.name. So when I click next, so now the program goes to the instance variable. So when I click on next, it doesn't print out anything. Why? Because we have to add the print function here. So let me quickly go here, and I'll add print here. So now let's click again on the visualize execution, and here you can see that when we click next, and when we reach to the instant variable, here these are printed out: Apple, again the name, and again the cache. So here we can say that instance variables can hold multiple values at the same time. unlike the normal variable which can hold only one value. So this was the concept of instance variable, and keep that in mind. It is very important. Now let's start the encapsulation example. So what we will do, we will create a trading bot that is capable of executing buy and sell orders based on the threshold value which we provide. So let's start that. So first of all, so let's create the class. And let's give it the name auto trading bot. Here, as usual, we will define the constructor function. So def init, and inside that we have to pass the self. Then what we will do, the user will provide the threshold value. So threshold, and here what we can do, we can just like assign the variable threshold. Means the threshold parameter is there, and when the user passes it will become self.threshold. You can even change the name. There is no interrelation between this and this, so you can have whatever you want, right? Then what we will do, we will create two more attributes. So the first is self.position, and currently that is none. Let's assign the value as none, correct? And the third is we will create an empty list. So self.price data, right? And let's keep it empty for now. So here we have three attributes. The first is threshold, second is position, and third is price data. So what we are doing here, the threshold will be provided by the user, and for now the initial position is none. The price data is not date, price data is empty, right? So these all are inside the constructor function. So as soon as the object is created, this function will be executed and these all values will be initialized. Let me correct this also. I have to add another underscore. Okay, now we are fine, right? Until then, what we can do, we can just test it whether it's working or not. So what we'll do, we'll create an object below. So let's say I'll create autobot1 is equals to auto trading bot, and then we will provide the threshold value. So let's say threshold is 100, correct? And when I hit shift enter, it runs perfectly fine. And in the next cell, what I'll do, I'll try to access the variables inside. So when I click on dot, it shows me some suggestions, which are the price data, the position, and threshold. The price data is currently an empty list, and in position the currently is none, and threshold we have already provided, which is 100. So if I try to access the price data, and when I hit shift enter, it gives me an empty list. Similarly, if I try to access the autobot dot, let's say position, and when I hit shift enter, it gives me nothing, right? Because this is a none value we have assigned. And then we have the last one, which is threshold, which we have already provided. So when I hit shift enter, we get 100. So it's working fine so far, correct? So let's proceed again. So now let's move to the next part. So what we will do here, we will create the skeleton of this class. So what we can do, our main object here is so now our main goal is to analyze the current market and then execute the trades based on the current data. So in order to achieve that, what we need to do, we need to fetch the data from the market. Then we need to fetch the latest data. Then we need to evaluate that. Then we will execute the trade. That's how the flow is. So let's first create the skeleton of the class. So what we will do, we'll first fetch the data. So fetch market data, a function, right? We just pass it here. And similarly, let me copy and paste this. Go here and I'll paste all these. Let's do it one more time. So here we have to add the colon. Again and again, right? The first is to fetch the market data. Then we need to fetch the latest price. So fetch latest price. So I'll just write here the function name as latest price, right? Then we need to evaluate. So we can change it to evaluate price. Then we can give another function, which is to execute the trade, And last what we will do, we'll create a run function. So with the help of that, we'll be able to control all the above functions, right? So now we need to add self also here, because as per the object-oriented programming, we need to add the object here. So we'll add self in all the classes, right? So that's the skeleton of this class. Okay, now let's build the logic. Before that, we can hit Shift Enter and check that it is working fine. It is working fine. And here also hit Shift Enter, it's working fine. And when we click, like when we just try to check, so when I click on dot, it should display all the functions. So you can see here, threshold, position, evaluate price, execute trade, fetch, latest, and price, and run. So means so far everything is okay. So like when you are trying to create a big program, you can divide that program into smaller chunks, and then you can work on small chunks. So it becomes so easy to write the code, right? So let's write the code. So what will happen here? We will get the threshold here. So let's write the code for the first function. So what we can do here, we'll first fetch the market data. So here in the real life scenario, we have to fetch the market data with the help of API. But here we'll just, for the sake of this example, we'll just simulate the data. So I'll just copy the attribute and I'll assign some value here in a list. So let's say we have 80, 90, 100, 110, and 120, and 130, right? So now this function will return this self.price data. So self.price data. And then what we can do, we can also print that market data has been fetched, right? Fetched. So until now, it should be very clear. Let me change these value to the current price of the Bitcoin. So let's say we have 69140 currently, and I'll just copy this price and I'll paste here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, correct? And let's quickly change these values. So this is 150, 160, 170, and 180, and 190. And what we will do, we will also change the threshold value. So let's say we keep the threshold as 69160. So here we'll change this threshold. So when I open the chart, so here you can see that these are the bars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So means in the list we have given these 6 values, right? The opening or closing price, you can take any one. So for example, I am taking the closing price here, latest bar, right? Or we can say the last bar before the current bar. So these are 6 values, and we will take the closing price. So again, in the example, we want to check this value, right? The second last bar. So we'll open. So let me open it again. So in the second function, what it will do, it will check the self.price data is there or not. If it is there, then it will return the self.price data, correct? Else it will return none, right? So now what we will do, we'll just test these two functions, whether it's working fine or not. So I'll just hit Shift Enter, and here again I'll pass the argument as the threshold 69160. And now when I click here as dot, I can see we have all the functions and we already have this price data. So when I click here price data, let me comment these for now. So Shift Enter and we get an empty list, correct? These value, what we can do, we can access this function. So fetch market data. So I'll try to autobot 1 dot fetch market data, and when I hit Shift Enter, we can get all the values, right? Okay. So, and here also we need to modify something, that we need the latest price, right? The last bar. So in order to get that, we have to add -1, because in list we know that the last item we can access with the help of negative indexing, and we can provide here the -1. So when I again hit Shift Enter and access the function autobot dot latest price. So now when I hit Shift Enter, we get the latest price, right? 69190. And you can see here the last element of this list is 69190. I'll just remove this comma from here. So this is how this function will work, the second one. So far, we have confirmed that these three functions are working fine. So now let's go to the next function, which is evaluate price. So now here we will evaluate the price with the threshold price, which we have given as the argument. So here what we will do, we'll create new variable, let's say latest price, which is equals to the self dot, we'll call the function latest price and we'll enclose that. So what will happen here, when we call this function, it will return the last price, the latest price, right? So now we can apply the conditions. So if latest price is less than the threshold price, which we have given here, so we have to write here self dot threshold price. So what we did here, so we know that if the latest price is less than the threshold price, so here we have given the threshold price as 69160, and here we know that the latest price is 69190. So if the latest price is less than the threshold price, we have to sell. So it will return a keyword, it will return as string, and we can write sell. Else what we can do, elif, if this latest price, instead of that what we can do, okay, yeah, let me just quickly copy and paste. Elif latest price is greater than the threshold price, then it will return the buy, right? A string. And else we can write like return hold. Return hold. Correct? So now we'll hit shift enter. And so now let's quickly write the execute function also and the run function also. So now what we will do, we'll write the code for the execute trade method, and let's start with that. So again we have to use the if else condition. So if it returns the cell, so we can write like if self dot evaluate price is equal to a string cell and the current position, this one, right? Self position, and self position is not equal to the short, right? Then what we can do, we can execute the price as short. So then what we can do, we can execute the short trade. So self position, I'll assign short to the self dot position, and we will return a string, and in which we can say sell trade has been executed and current position is, we can write short. Correct? Similarly, so now what we will do, we'll just copy and paste the above function again, and here I'll just change the values to buy. If evaluate price returns the buy string and self dot position is not equal to the long trade to the self dot position, and here we can return buy trade has been executed and current position is long. Hopefully it is clear, and we will change it to elif. And the last condition we can give else if something is different, then what we can return, we have one more return here, so we can use that also. Like we can write here if return is hold. So if evaluate price function returns the hold string, and we'll remove this because not required for now, then what we can do, we can assign the self position the hold, and here we can say the trade is on hold, for now, and current position is hold. Hopefully it should work. Correct? So I think we are good to go. So what we can do now, we can test this. So when we call the execute trade, okay, now what we can do, we can execute this. So shift enter. Then one more thing, I think we have forgot to add parenthesis here, so we'll just add that. and let me add it everywhere where we have used this. So here also and here also. Now I think we are good to go. Okay, so let's call this function execute trade. So here I'll go and call this function print autobot dot execute trade, and so here it is returning us the none value. Why? Because in the latest price we haven't given anything. So let me execute this again. So now what we can do, let's try to run this program. So I'll just hit shift enter, and okay, I'll just remove all this clutter first from here. Let me remove everything so it becomes easier for us to run again. And again, let me remove it. Okay, so now we have this class, right? Let's try to execute the methods one by one. So first of all, what we'll do, we'll create an object. So the name is auto trading bot. So I'll just copy from here and let me create the object. So let's say bot1 is equals to the auto trading bot, and here we can pass a threshold. So let's say we have this list. So threshold is, I'll give 69170. So what will happen now that we have given the condition here, right? Here you can see that if the latest price is less than threshold, then it will return a sell. And if the latest price is greater than the threshold price, it will return a buy, or else if it is equal, then it will return a hold. Let's run this and let me try to access bot1. So bot1 dot, now we have all these attributes and functions. So position, run, evaluate price, execute price, fetch market data. First of all, we'll run one by one. First, we have this method fetch market data. So let me try to execute this fetch market data, and I hit shift enter, and it returns me a list, which is absolutely expected, correct? And let's do one more thing. We'll print all these. So correct. Now the next we have is the latest price. So let me print it, the latest price, bot1 dot latest price, and when we hit shift enter, it should return this last price. So it is working fine, correct? Now let's move to the evaluate price. Let's try to print the evaluate price, print and bot1 dot evaluate price, and when we hit shift enter, it gives the buy, because as the condition here, if the latest price is greater than the threshold price, and we know that the latest price is 69190 and threshold we have given the 69170, correct? Means the latest price is greater than the threshold price, and it will return as a buy string. Now we have the main function, which is execute trade. So what we can do here, we can call this also. So print and bot1 dot execute trade, and when we hit shift enter, it returns an error that missing one required positional argument action. So here you can see that in all the other functions we have given only the self as parameter, but here we have given action also, and we know that what is the action? Action is nothing but this evaluate price function call, correct? So what we can do, I can just go here, I can assign action this function, right? So now I'll write here action, and when I hit shift enter, it returns me none. Actually, I have to remove this print from here, and when I hit shift enter, it gives me buy trade has been executed and current position is long. Let's say if I change this threshold to something else, I'll change it to, let's say, 140, or let's say we change it to 70, so that the threshold will be greater than the latest price. So when I hit shift enter, so now let's say we change this to something else. So we know that the condition is evaluate. If latest price is less than threshold price, it will give us a sell. The latest is 69190 and threshold is 69170. So what we can do, we can make it 70, right? So, or let's make it 91. And when we hit shift enter, it gives us a sell trade has been executed and current position is short. So it is working fine. But so far we have just created a simple normal class, correct? But now we want to see that how encapsulation works and how it affects the program. So let's see it. So let me tell you a story. Let's say you are in a company and you are working as a senior programmer, right? Recently, a fresh engineer, let's say as junior programmer, has joined your company. So initially, you have given him all the KTs, like how your company works and all the normal operations. But after a few days, you observe that he is not taking his task seriously. Like he's just relaxing and not working up to the mark. So one day, you just told him that, Mister, listen me very carefully. If you're coming in office and between these hours, you have to work sincerely and you have to show me the results. And these words from the senior programmer just hurted the ego of the junior programmer. So what he thought that no matter what happens, I will teach him the lesson of his life. So what he did, okay, give me the work. So the programmer told him that I have created a class with the name trading bot. Now you just have to convert this class to a GUI, right? Generally what happens in a company that a senior programmer writes the class and then a junior programmer just use their class and make the other program, or they can convert that into a GUI. So what he did, he just went and he just saw the senior programmer has created his class with the name auto trading bot. So what he did, he went and he created another object, let's say bot2 auto trading bot, and he provided a threshold value of, let's say, 69. Before that, let me make a small change. That what I'll do, I'll go to the fetch market data, and here I'll change this value a user input value, right? Instead of a default value, we will take this value from the user. So I'll change it to user for the sake of this example. I'll change, and here also I'll assign this value here to, and what I will do, I'll just copy this. So now what is happening, the user has to provide the list value, the price data. So what the junior programmer did, he created this object and then checked that bot 2 has these methods: evaluate price, execute trade, fetch market data, and latest price, position, and price data. So what he did, when he given that fetch price data, he need to provide a list here, right? So what he did, like user, let's say I'll go user input data is equals to a list, right? And here we will pass this as an argument. When we hit shift enter, we get this value back. So in order to teach his senior lesson, what he did, he knew that in a list we can have any kind of data type, right? So what he did, he just slightly changed this integer to a string. Just a small change, okay? Then what happened? Then again he entered shift enter. It's working fine, right? At this point, nobody can quickly find out the problem, right? So what he did, then next instead of this, he changed the last price to the string. Why? Because to teach his senior lesson. So now what he did, he just shift enter, we are getting the value fine. So now the next function is to fetch the latest price. So what we can do here, bot2, or let me first quickly comment these values. Now bot2 dot latest price, and now when we hit shift enter, we still get the latest price, right? But in a string. Now we have the execute trade function. So now you pause the video and tell me whether this command will work or not. Okay, just pause the video and think, and then answer me in the comments. Let's say hit shift enter, and now you can see that it says missing one required positional argument, that is action. So first, okay, before this execute, we have this evaluate price. So dot evaluate price. Now you can pause the video and comment in the answer whether this command will work or not. So when we hit shift enter, and now what we get, a type error. It says not supported between instances of string and integer. Technically, like if someone sees this code from outside, they cannot quickly judge what is the problem, right? Because he just changed a list item to a string, and it becomes really difficult while debugging sometimes, right? So then what happened, everybody was very stressed that the code is broken and not working fine. Then his senior came and he analyzed the code. His code was correct, but the input values from the user is not correct. That means any user, they can break this code easily. So in order to avoid that issue, what he did, he first made a complaint that this program is not serious and he's purposely trying to break the code, and not a good teammate, you can say. So then obviously he was terminated, and now the senior was very cautious and he made some changes to mitigate this issue. So now you let me know what we can do so that a user from the outside cannot make changes here. So now the junior programmer thought to teach him a lesson for his life. So what he did, he just came to his desk and he created an object. So let's say bot equals to the name of the class, and we have to provide the threshold, right? So let's say name of the class and threshold we can provide is we can see the list, and let's say 69160. So when I hit shift enter, it works fine. And now when we bot3 dot, this class has these many functions: evaluate price, execute trade, fetch market data, latest price, position, price data, run threshold, right? And here what we can do, one more thing, we can remove this. As of now, it's not like we are not using this, so I can remove this. Okay, so now what he did, he was trying to break this code anyhow. So what he did, so first of all, he just called the function bot3 dot fetch market data, and he can see that he has received a list, right, which is okay. Then he tried to access the latest price function. So latest price here, and when he check, he got the value as 69190. So what we will do here, we'll just print all these values so it becomes easier to understand. Print and bot3. Now we can see that we have a list with the market data and then a latest price, that is 69190. And then he called this a method evaluate price. Okay, so print and then bot3 dot evaluate price, and when he hit shift enter, he was given a string with the buy trade, right? Now what he did, he thought that when I checked, I found there is a attribute with the name threshold, right? And he knew that I have given here a integer with the 69160. What if I change this threshold value to a string? So what he did, he simply bot3 threshold equals to, let's say he given a string. Then he again tried to access the evaluate price, and when we hit shift enter, it says not supported between instances of integer and string. And with this, he was able to break the code. And now you can see that we have a big problem here. If we create a program and then any outsider, they can come and break this code, right? So it is not a good practice, and we should be always hiding our data, means the attributes. And even if required, we can hide our methods also, which are not useful to the public. We can only display the authorized methods which are required for the user. So the best practice is to always keep your data, which are attributes, hidden. So now you tell me how we can hide this so that the junior programmer cannot access this and cannot change this. Just pause the video and just think and let me know, because we have already learned this concept many times previously in so many languages, right? Let me show you what we can do here. Now we can make these attributes private. So what we will do here, I'll just change this to double underscore we'll just hide the attributes for the outside public, right? So I'll make it also hidden and this also hidden. And when I hit shift enter, okay, actually we have to now replace all these attributes with this. So I'll just copy this, and here let's change it to threshold. Now let's change the position. The last is the price data, so we will change here also a price data. So now when we hit shift enter, and again let me remove this and hit shift enter. So now we can see that the program is still working, but the most important thing which has happened after this, that we have hidden our valuable data. That is the most important thing in encapsulation. Now when we try to access these attributes bot3, here you can see that the position has been changed to underscore position, and again the price data has also been changed, and all the other attributes which we have made private. So if I try to access this now, okay, when I hit shift enter, it gives me an error that it says auto trading board object has no attribute underscore underscore position. Correct. This way we can hide our important data. Let me show you this visually. So what we will do, we'll just copy this code, this whole code, and we'll go to the Python tutor, right? So let me open the Python tutor, and here is the code, and I have pasted the whole code. And again, so now when we click on visualize execution, it says it has no attributes. So we'll add it and we'll remove the last one, and we just try to see what is happening internally. We have 28 steps, so let's see one by one. So when we click on next, it creates a global frame, and again next. So here you can see that the threshold is passed as an argument and the program goes inside the class. Now again next. So now you can see that this Python has converted this self.threshold variable to underscore the class name, again underscore underscore threshold to 69160. Means let me open the program again, and here I'll show you. Earlier we were able to access this threshold. So after adding these underscore, when I try to access this, it says me has no attribute, right? If I want, I can still access this attribute. How? Let me show you. So I'll just open this and I'll just copy, and now when I try to execute this, you can see here it has been executed. We can access this variable, right? So that was the internal Python process, and generally people cannot guess the variable name. But in order to just make you understand, I just showed you how this is happening behind the scenes, right? So this is how you can hide your data, and the same thing you can use with the methods also. It can be used and it will work fine. And whenever you want to encapsulate your data or methods, you should be making them private, right? Now the next concept is reference variables. So let's understand this. So reference variables hold the objects. Yeah, correct. So what happens? For example, this is the class and we want to create an object of this class. What we will do, we'll write a syntax like this. Trade1 is equals to trading strategy, correct? And then we pass all the arguments, right? So what is happening now? Try to understand. This is very subtle concept. So at this point, when we are writing this, an object is created. Object creation, right? Creation. So we can say that even if we don't use this trade1, still the object is created. Means if we just write trading strategy and parenthesis, and inside that we pass all the like symbol and amount. Let me write it clearly. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll write like this: trading strategy, and inside that we have symbol and amount. So for example, symbol I will give BTC, and amount, let's say I give 1.2 BTC. So we can say that when we write this syntax, an object will be created. And whenever there is an object in the memory, an address will be created. For example, when I write this syntax, an object at a location 0x1000 created. Correct. Now, in order to hold the reference of this object, or we can say memory address of this object, what we can say, we have to write a variable name. So I'll write trade1. So means we can say this is just a variable which is holding the reference of this object. It is not mandatory to always write this. Even if you write just this syntax, an object will be created. But if you don't write this, then this object will be lost somewhere in the memory address and we won't be able to use that object again. So to hold that memory address or reference of that object, we have to define a reference variable. So that's why we can say reference variable hold the objects, correct? Then we can create objects without reference variable as well. We'll also see on the example, but for now, just understand this. And the third is an object can have multiple reference variables. Yes, we can have that, and we have also seen that. So for example, I can also write like this: trade2 equals to trading strategy. And here I can pass, let's say, ETH, and amount I can give, for example, 6 Ethereum. So now we have two objects of this class. This is the first object, trade1, and second is trade2. And these both holds different memory address. Means we can have multiple reference variables, right? Then assigning a new reference variable to an existing object doesn't create a new object. For example, I created this trade one here. So I can write like trade one, and I can write like this also. Trade 3 equals to trade 2 means this is an existing object and I am assigning this object to this trade 3. Correct? That's what this line is trying to say. Assigning a new reference variable, new one is this, new reference variable, to an existing object. Existing is this one. Doesn't create a new object means it will not create a new object, because if the memory address of this object is 0x1000, then the same address will be held by this reference variable. These both the reference variable holds the same memory address. So that is the concept of reference variable. Okay, now let's quickly see the example of that. So what I will do, we can copy and paste the above example. So I will just take this and I'll paste here, and then I just hit shift enter. So what I'll do, I'll just create a new cell here, and here what I will do, let me try to create an object of this. So as we have discussed that we can create an object even without a reference variable. So let's say trader, and here I will give the name input as Kuldeep, and trading style input I'll give scalping. So when I hit shift enter, it gives me an address of the object, right? You can see here 0x10f and 950. So that means an object is created, but in order to hold this address, we have to give some reference variable. So I will give trader1 is equals to this memory address, or we can say this trader1 holds the reference of this object, right? So when I hit shift enter, and now I can access everything from inside the class. You can see greet, name, trading style. So when I print name, I will receive my name, and that's how we can do that. Next concept is multiple reference variable. So what we will do, I'll write trader2, and this can be, let's say, Sandeep. Okay, and he is a day trading. So day trading. And so when I hit shift enter, and now when I print both the like trader1 print trader dot name, and again print trader 2 dot name. So when I hit shift enter, we'll get the name of both the traders, Kuldeep and Sandeep. Okay, now we have change attribute value with the help of second object, right? So before that, let me show you one thing, that assigning a new reference variable to an existing object doesn't create a new object. So let me first show you the ID of these objects. So what I'll do, I'll just type ID here, and here also I will print the ID of these, right? So now when I hit shift enter, you can see that we have the memory address of both the objects, and that is different, right? Because these are two different objects. But let's say what I did after this, I assigned let's say new trader1 is equals to trader1, and again new trader2 is equals to trader2, right? And what we can do here, I will just copy and paste it here. Okay, let me paste it here, so it will be more better. So here let me type new trader dot name, and here also I can print new trader dot name, right? And now let's hit shift enter. So you can see that the memory address of both the trader1 and new trader1 is same, and the memory address of trader2 and new trader2 is same. So that's how you can infer that even when we assign a new reference variable to an existing object, it doesn't create a new object. It just holds the same memory address. Now we have the next concept, which is pass by reference. So what we will do, we'll quickly copy and paste the previous example. So I'll just go and let me take this example. So copy and paste here. Okay. So what I'll do now, I'll just shift enter. It's working fine. Okay. So let's do one thing. I will. Okay. Now what I did, we have a class, and inside that we have a constructor function, and inside that we have two attributes, right? The name and trading style. And now we have another function. So now pay attention that this function is no more inside this class, right? Means it is not a method now, it is a function. So this is a separate class and this is a separate function. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll just hit shift enter. Okay, now let's create an object of this class. So a is equals to trader, and here we'll provide the input with the name and the trading style. So let's say scalping. Okay, and what we will do, and we will also call this function greet here. So what I'll do here, first I'll try to check the name with this object. So a dot name is printing Kuldeep, that's fine. And again, if I try to print the trading style, so trading style also scalping. So now when you observe that in suggestions you have only attributes, the function is not there because we purposely kept out this function outside of the class. So what I'll do now, I'll try to call the function. So greet, and inside greet, what I'll do, I'll pass the object a. Okay, and here what I will do, I will just change from self to, let's say, we can keep it a also here, not an issue. So a, I'll change all the values a, here also a, and a dot name, a dot name, and a dot name, and the last one is a dot name. Now try to understand that here we are creating an object, and then this is a separate function call. So here what I'm doing, inside the function argument, I'm passing an object. So greet and a. Okay, then when I hit shift enter, so it says me keep it fast and precise, Kuldeep. So now I hope that you are able to understand the more and more the power and the flexibility of Python, that we are able to pass any object as a reference. And now if you want, you can even return an object as a function return. So what I'll do here, I'll return, before that I'll create an object here. So b is equals to the name of class, which is trader, and let's say I give a name here as Sandeep, and he is a day trader. So I'll give day trading. Okay, and then I will return this object. So return b, correct? So let me try to execute this. So, and again, because this function is returning b to this function call, so I have to assign this to, let's say, c. Okay, so shift enter, shift enter. So first it is printing this value, keep it fast and precise, Kuldeep, this one, correct? Then here I would like to print c. So print c, print c dot name, c dot name. So you can see Sandeep here. So now what we did here, let me quickly explain you. First we create an object here, okay, and then that object is being passed as an argument in this function, correct? And then this function will execute and it will check that this condition is satisfying here, so it will print that value, correct? This one, keep it fast and precise, Kuldeep. And then inside that function it is creating a new object b, okay, with the name Sandeep, and then it will return that new object which is b, and here we are assigning the return value to c, and then we will print the c dot name. So it is a little bit complex, but it's very easy to understand. You try yourself 2 or 3 times and you will be able to understand that. Okay, now let me show you one interesting thing. What I will do here, before returning, I'll print the ID of this b dot name, okay, inside the function. And again, so before returning, I am printing the memory address of this b dot name. And again, here also I will print the memory address of c dot name, correct? So when I hit shift enter, so here you can see that the address of both the b dot name and c dot name is same, which means, so here we can see that we are not passing the object, we are passing the reference of that object, means the memory address of that object. So this is the pass by reference. And so now the next concept is mutability of object. Now we want to check whether the objects created are mutable or immutable. So what we will do, so for that what we will do, I'll just write here b dot name is equals to Mandeep. Okay, now you just pause the video and you tell me that we have two print statements. One is inside the function and one is outside the function. Now you tell me whether this statement will be able to change this name or not. And if your answer is yes, then comment the print output. And if no, then also comment the print output. So let's pause the video for 2 seconds. And okay, now let me show you. So when I hit shift enter, and again when I hit shift enter, I can see that the name has been changed. Means we can say that the objects created are mutable. Correct? So that's how you can check, and it will be much better if you just go and attempt all the MCQs and the task. It will definitely clear your concepts.